Today we're firing up this Cisco Cache Engine 505 from the late 1990s. This particular device is a lower-end model in the series intended for some small or medium businesses utilizing a T1 line as their internet connection. When loading something like a website, the router serving the internal network's traffic would first consult the cache engine, sporting some faster than T1 SCSI drives, to see if it had already stored the assets being requested. As such, anything the cache engine already stored away would not require an internet hop out over the T1 line. This could result in some near-instant response times within the network. These images here are over 2 megabytes each and loading basically right away over a T1 connection. This cache engine was brought back from the dead by mxshift many months ago, and today I'm going to get it racked up in the retro rack and doing some caching, early 2000s style. Along the way, we'll fix up this Compaq Presario crap box to use as our testing client. I'll break my 3D printer. Then I'll fix my 3D printer. And the T1 port adapter in the Cisco VXR, serving as the RetroRex router, will give me some trouble, so we'll have to deal with that too. But finally, we'll have a very impressive T1 setup to test this cache engine with. Let's get into it. Here we've got a Cisco Systems Cache Engine 500 series appliance from the late 1990s. There were several cache engines in the 500 series. This one is the lower end model. It is a Cache Engine 505 or CE 505. I bought this on eBay September 2024, almost 2 years ago, for predominantly one reason. It has drive bays on it. Not to mention its external SCSI connector. The name is pretty apt, Cache Engine. It does caching. So when someone is requesting content out from the internet, you can use a protocol called WCCP, which we will get into and try to configure today, to attempt to load content from these drives locally within the network before hitting out onto the internet, which might sound like total overkill for a small to medium business back in the day, but this thing was from the era when T1 would have been a popular connection. As a refresher, a T1 link is roughly 1.54 megabits per second when fully utilized. My 1 gigabit per second download link that I have in this house I'm standing in is over 600 times faster. So the less you can go out on your T1 link in your day-to-day business, the better. So let's imagine that we're trying to access some website over here on the internet. Those websites are going to have a bunch of assets: CSS, JavaScript, HTML, large images for this era anyway. The website probably has a logo. The way you can configure this, when someone on your network goes to website.com/logo.jpg, obviously it's going to have to flow through your router. The router can be configured to consult a cache engine and say, hey, do you have logo.jpg from this website? In our case, it's going to come down here. The cache engine is going to say no. It'll go out and get it on the internet, and then it'll be cached here. Now, when this guy comes along and makes that same request, when he's loading up the logo, it's never even going to touch the internet. It's going to go this way, bounce back. When this guy comes out and asks for the same thing, same deal, and you're saving bandwidth on your T1 connection. That's my mental model of it anyway. I don't know if the lines I drew were exactly how that all flows. We're going to find out together today, because I've got a big Cisco 7206 router in the retro rack, which I do believe supports the protocol to interact with the cache engine, a little something like this. So once we see if the cache engine is behaving, massive story about that right after this. It's been a saga. We'll get some workstations set up. We'll configure the cache engine to talk to my router. I should note you can also use layer 3 switches that support the protocol. I'm going to be using a router. And then we'll get out some T1 gear and fake having a T1 internet connection and run some tests and see if this caching is actually going to do us any favors down here. Figured I'd give you the theory of operation for this thing and tell you why I think it's interesting to play around with it in the first place and even try to get it working. Now let's talk about my misadventures with this item. So a couple months after I picked this thing up, I was going to do a full video on it, like I'm attempting to do tonight, and I fired it up, and things were not right with this thing. It didn't even know what it was. So I turned that stuff into a Patreon video as I was troubleshooting. It sees that it has the image of the software that should be on this thing, but then you get this very mysterious message. It says this image supports models CE 505, 550, and this appliance is a blank. This thing didn't know what it was. And it took me a long time to sort of come to that conclusion. I messed around trying to get TFTP settings and all sorts of different stuff, the usual Cisco stuff you try. I figured there was a corrupt image on it. Turns out that was not the case. So my buddy mxshift of Usagi Electric fame, among his many other impressive accomplishments, reached out and we started doing some light troubleshooting over Discord, and ultimately I shipped it up to him. And he made 2 excellent videos so far about how he brought this thing back to life. Long story short, the geniuses over at Cisco designed this in such a way that if the clock battery dies, this thing loses information, vital product data about what it is, what its MAC address is. It becomes a brick. I don't know the lore on these things. Knowing Cisco, they probably acquired a company that was making these and branded them Cisco. And as you'll see inside, it's just a PC, which is good in our case. mxshift was able to work some magic, throw in a Zulu SCSI, boot to DOS on it, use the DOS debugging command to rewrite the volatile memory that's in here that needs to know the product identifier, all that information, and got it working. I have not booted it up since he sent it back to me. I feel kind of guilty. It's been like 10 months, but today is the day. We're going to see if this thing works. I saw it working on his videos. I will link to those videos down in the description. They're super fascinating. I never would have been able to figure it out. As I recall, he still has not divulged how he figured out where and what to write to the volatile chip in here. Let's see if we can even figure out what chip it is. Let's open it up. So I took the screws off the side, and it's a little tight to get it out of here. I got to do one of these. And we have what is quite obviously a PC. We've got some RAM. I think that's an Athlon something or other. I think I was reading the docs, 266 megahertz, and the usual stuff. Now, the very bizarre choice Cisco made, which mxshift figured out, I did not, was if you let this coin cell battery go bad, they decided to store critical information about the device, aka what it is, in this CMOS real-time clock 256 byte battery-backed SRAM storage. So my understanding is if that battery goes bad, this gets wiped, and this machine becomes useless. They had other options. This Intel flash chip here, let me give you a better view. They have a good logo. I think this holds at least the bootloader. That's non-volatile, meaning you won't lose that data. I think this is the old BIOS chip for the PC that this basically is. The important information in there is going to survive a dead battery. So yeah, utterly bizarre. I should message mxshift. So what was their plan? Like, do you replace that coin cell while this thing is running? or like, what's the procedure here? That doesn't make any sense to do that. I have to reiterate it because it's so outrageous and I've never seen it on any machine. If that coin cell dies, this machine is no longer usable without some serious debugging by someone like mxshift. I'm sure Cisco with their support plan would have been happy to charge you to fix this thing, but man, maybe in practice it didn't really matter. I mean, the coin cell lasted 10 years. These weren't running 10 years later. Cisco networking equipment in general from the 2000s is still running to this day, and the backbone of more things than we'd like to admit. But something like a cache engine, as you'll see when we get into the caching and the proxy list stuff and the HTTP only support, like these were going to be phased out. So maybe that wasn't a big deal. I don't know. Not what I expected when I bought this thing, so look out for that. Before we button it up and pray to the technology gods that it works after 10 months since it's last been booted, a couple things to take care of. Got this light path LED kind of light tube deal, and it looks like it's broken, but that one's not actually in use, so this was clearly like a generic 5-path part, and they just needed 4. And poor mxshift forgot to ship this to me when he originally shipped it back and sent me another package. So a huge thanks to you, mxshift. I'm going to see if I can get this in there. I think it's just kind of a press fit. Yeah, I think I got it. So we already had 2 here, 2 here. Now we've got these 4 going to the front. And the one we just inserted is serving these 4 lights right here. So link activity and whether or not we're fast Ethernet, 100 megabit per second Ethernet on these 2 network interfaces on the front. So because there's the 100 megabits per second fast Ethernet light, I'm assuming they can also do 10 megabit. And that would make sense given the era of this thing. Speaking of, these came out in the late 90s to the best of my knowledge. This one appears to have been manufactured April 28th of 2000. And then the hard drives inside are a pair of Quantum Atlas 4 SCSI drives. I don't recall how large they are. Let me see if it says. Not that I can see. I think it'll show us in the interface if it boots up properly. It's always funny. I'll like zoom in on these SCSI drives and when I'm in the moment, I never see it, and it's probably on there somewhere. These work. They always appeared to work just fine. even when I had originally been messing with it. And of course they worked for mxshift, as they were able to get it to boot properly. Hopefully we get to do that as well today, so that is good. And then we might as well see if the all-important coin cell battery still has some juice. I've got one probe on the top of it, one probe to ground. I'm just going to use the drive. 3 volts. There's hope. Got the lid back on and a few of the case screws because I'm feeling cocky, and I dropped one of the screws on the ground. So I crawled back in there to find it, and hadn't been down there in a while. Found all sorts of stuff not related to this project. I can't believe I let my cat go down there. However, this was down there. We can use this Cisco console cable. Cisco devices of this era, maybe still, I think they've kind of moved on to USB. Use this RJ45 serial console cable, and I'm going to convert that over to USB with this serial to USB adapter. Go into my machine, and we need a power cable. I have been spending a ton of time organizing down here lately. That's why there's been slightly fewer videos than usual. I keep all my IEC power cables right here, so I can just grab one off the pile. I recently installed this bad boy to see if it works for me. So every outlet is switched, mounted under the table. So that's how we're going to plug her in today. There is a power switch on the back, which is off, so we'll give it power here. Got the serial console hooked up on my main machine with that USB adapter I was just showing you. So let's flip the power here. Some fans are coming to life. And you can actually hear the drives spin up, and these drive lights kind of go on and off as it's doing its boot thing. And I do see some action on the serial console. It does see both drives. It's going to auto boot right now. It's booting from flash. You can learn a lot more about this in mxshift's videos, or on my Patreon if you want to learn nothing until mxshift figures everything out. I have never seen this thing actually attempt to boot the software it's supposed to be running. Yeah. What? This is, yeah, I think it's functional. I think it's still functional. It's going off looking at the network. It has no network. So I think it's going to time out of this attempt, and we should get into the software this thing is running. It says admin super user account is not password protected. That's good. Admin, no password. Yeah. So by default, admin, no password. I don't even know what to do. Question mark. It's iOS-esque. I don't know that it is iOS. This thing kind of strikes me as, like I mentioned, maybe it was an acquisition, because it's not a full-blown, I don't know how to describe it. It's not like using a normal Cisco networking appliance. It's a little different. It works. Now we need to go learn how to use it. All right, I'm not going to lie to you. I am about to go to bed, and I don't actually want to learn how to use this thing at this very moment. I have read the documentation, a fair amount of it, and I'm pretty sure we're going to be okay. Maybe we'll have some iOS software incompatibility issues with the router, but I feel like we can solve that problem. So we're going to take a brief interlude into something that's way less work for me mentally. This is one of the workstations, the PCs, we're going to test out this cache engine with. Let me open this up. Oh, it's so beautiful. And it was packed immaculately. Whatever's wrong with this thing was not the eBay seller's fault. They did an amazing job. It's a piece of crap Compaq Presario. You'll notice it has a little lean to it. It's missing one of its very large rubber bumpers. I'm going to check the box, and then I might have something. Hey, that's huge. Might have something. We'll see. Nothing in the box. Kind of annoyed. You know, would have been nice to know. Rubber bumper missing. I've got a bunch of these small ones. Might be able to stack them temporarily. 2 of these maybe. Just to get her, you know, not too lopsided. We'll see what that does for us. I also have bad news. There is a lot of stuff rolling around in here. And it appears... I'm looking through the grill. I'm not even going to pick it up again. It is the CPU heatsink. Yeah, that's not good. That might have been doing a lot of damage. This was sold as working until it got shipped. Uh-oh. That's okay, though. We'll fix whatever's wrong. I kind of solved the wobble problem. Let me take a look. Oh, there's like other stuff rolling around. Oh, that's no good. She might need a little love and attention. That doesn't feel right. It's like one of the most important parts. We'll address everything as it comes. Is this dumb sticker going to come off? No. Gotta get some Gooby Gone on that. That's okay. We can solve that. You're probably asking yourself, why buy something like this? Well, this was like the family computer in the early 2000s. What is it? It is a Presario S6010V. I'm gonna go look up the years on this thing. I remember that for sure. USB audio in there. We were definitely running Windows XP on it. Compaq made a bunch of these different Presarios, so I don't know that this is the exact model we had, but for a long time, this was like the family computer in the early 2000s. Let's go see when this one was made. Like I was saying, it's an S6010V. Nice numbering scheme, Compaq. And she's ripping with the Celeron that everyone of my vintage hated. Windows XP. Everyone of my vintage likes Windows XP. I think this baby came out in roughly 2003. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And I do remember, hopefully that's coming out, the really nice Compaq logo. I think HP owned them at this point. Did a lot of IRC, AOL Instant Messenger on this bad boy. Not this one, but the one I had in my house. There's some plastic rattling around up in here. We're going to have to figure that out. I think it was in pretty good shape until it shipped, is what I'm gathering. Hopefully, and this is a big hopefully, this didn't do too much damage banging into components and stuff, because obviously this is heavy. I was going to pull it off anyway, but that's not looking good. While the Gooby Gone works its magic, started rooting around trying to figure out what all that extra noise I was hearing in the top of the case was, and I think I figured it out. Something bad happened in here. A little dust issue in the floppy drive too. Probably goes without saying, this thing doesn't smell very good. The toolless sort of rail kit style system takes these M3 screws for the larger drives that sort of have like a shoulder on them. And I always thought this was kind of a nice touch. They include the extras you might need as you expand. They just screw them into the front of the case here in some holes. Pretty good feature. Every screw has been loose on this thing, even though the warranty sticker is intact. Pretty weird. I'm not particularly concerned about repairing this thing, so if this sort of thing bothers you, look away now. Well, there's your problem. Bunch of pieces of a CD-ROM. Wheel of Fortune, maybe? That's a shame. There's, oh yeah, definitely Wheel of Fortune. There's not enough in here to be a whole disc, though, I don't think. That's kind of weird. Anyway, I'm not worried about this thing. To be fair, I had assumed the plastics of this drive sled had busted apart. I couldn't get the front tray open. The drive might even still work. But I recently picked up a ton of these things. I think these are all IDE DVD RW burners. So I'm just going to choose one at random. This Philips from July 2005. That's about right. This one was broken. Came that way. I didn't do it. And so the drive was able to move all over the place freely during shipping, or more than it would have been if it had been retained. That might have led to our problem. I really don't think that's a whole CD-ROM in there though, so it might have been screwed from the start. What is this? It's just a zip tie sitting here wedged in. Is that to keep the drive from moving? I'll leave it there. Bet you thought you were getting a Cache Engine video. We will get back to that, I promise. This thing is going to be hopefully benefiting from that cache, and some tests will run. Got the new drive in there. I haven't tested any of those drives, so we'll see if it works. And if it doesn't, it's very easy to get them in and out with this little rail kit thing. Let's see how the side project's doing. It's working, but needs to be on there a little longer. Does it bother anyone else that the floppy drive door is white and the rest of the peripherals are black? It doesn't seem like it's been replaced. It's got that weird zip tie on the front, and then This one here is still looped in. This one has been cut. So it's been pulled out maybe? Whatever. Probably doesn't work anyway. Taking a look, I realized obviously this has to clip into something, and that would have sucked if those were broken, but nothing seems broken. Oh, just kidding. That's a problem. That's what broke. And then it got loose. Oh, why do I even talk? We're gonna glue that. Just super glued the crap out of that. Got a little piece of paper wedging it into the right position. I'm not so sure super glue is gonna be enough there. I should have started with this, but I wasn't thinking. We'll mix up a batch of this, and then let me see if I can show you. I could, of course, just get another one of these things, but that'd be no fun. And then I might glue a piece of plastic with the JB Weld right here on this side, or just slap the JB Weld on there. I'm not sure. Probably just slap the JB Weld on there. And I might dab a little bit, yeah, probably on this side as well. So the crack was kind of like this direction. This part separated here and right here. So yeah, basically where this paper is, I'll slather the JB Weld on that side, and same here, and we'll find out real quick if that's going to work. But this computer won't be running well for long. As you can see, got some pretty serious capacitor issues right here. This whole project's falling apart. This thing might be its own video someday. It was sold as working. I think they might have even showed me a post screen in the eBay listing. Those are going to have to go sooner rather than later. Maybe it'll get us through our cache engine adventure, though. This project is progressing, though. Small wins, you know, take the wins where you can get them. This stuff is pretty nasty, and it smells real bad. And you only get 5 minutes of working time, so I'm not going to be able to film it. I'll be back in a little bit. It's on there. I can all but assure you it's not really... I don't think it's going to work, but we're going to leave it overnight just in case, let it cure fully, and see what happens. These capacitors, of course, might put an end to this whole Compaq Presario journey, at least for this video. I did order all the replacements I need on DigiKey, but that's going to take days to get here, and so we'll probably move on to another PC. I do have a backup plan for this bracket, though. That's just an Intel socket 478, you know, Celeron setup, all default, nothing proprietary to Compaq or HP. So of course someone has designed the retention bracket on Thingiverse. It smells so bad down here. My throat hurts. The JB Weld is so nasty. It was in here for a total of 2 minutes, and I immediately bagged it up and put it in the garbage can outside. And yeah, the whole room just gets ruined. The whole basement smells terrible, unfortunately. Anyway, got this one cooking. The 3D printer is currently self-leveling itself over there. Should be done in about an hour, and it'll be essentially free. You can buy these. They're readily available on eBay and stuff, but I'm hoping if we don't get to use the original, maybe this one will work for us. We will see. I knew that 3D printer would hopefully come in handy. I will report back. Disaster struck almost immediately. It got about this far until the machine started beeping. It paused itself and said that it was trying to print without extruding filament, which was exactly what was happening. So I gotta scrape all this off, start over. Wasn't actually this thing's fault though, so it can hold up to 4 spools of filament, and I loaded the black one, and I kind of remember thinking it was kind of janky. It had been wound over itself a few times, and basically it was jammed. It couldn't feed any more spool, and the machine noticed. We'll just print it blue in the meantime. I'm gonna start over. We have a problem. It doesn't like the blue one either, which used to work. It says the filament may be blocked between the CFS hub, this big spool thing up here I think, and the extruder filament detector. This is why you can't trust YouTubers like me that print 5 things and say this thing's great. There does not appear to be a very detailed tutorial about what to do about this. The Creality wiki that they do link you to doesn't seem to be particularly useful. So I'm going to turn this thing off. Sounds to me like I'm supposed to pick this thing up and have a look at the back. I'll let you know what I find. Well, I unspooled everything. I was looking at the bottom of this. There's a 4-way pathway thing that ultimately turns into one tube. So whichever one you choose, flows through that one tube into the machine. That's working fine. So I don't think there's any blockage in here. And I also don't think this thing had any spool issue. So I'll show you how janky this is. That's rolling fine. Let's cut some of this off that unspooled on me. Okay. So you kind of put this in here. Whatever happened to that old cache engine? What are we doing? And then there's a button you press here. So it's trying to load the filament. I told it in the app. There we go. Okay, it's auto-loading the filament. Never mind, we definitely have some problems. It's smart enough not to hurt itself. Yeah. Are you having fun yet? New plan. I don't know why it makes so much noise when nothing's happening. I've told it to do nothing. It's just like panicking. Now what we're going to do... So that one auto-loaded just fine. It likes that one. That's what's supposed to happen. Anyway, I was wrong on at least one count. This one is definitely tangled, so I'm going to have to abandon it. I don't know. That's no good. It's doing its thing. Whatever. It's happy with that. It knows there's red PLA right there. Pretty sure, though, got a problem somewhere in here. It can basically get to the print head. Print head might be jammed or something. This is exactly the kind of crap I bought this thing to not have to deal with. What I'm dealing with now. I'm bringing this thing over so I can take it apart. It's a couple days later. I spent a lot of time messing with this thing. Took this off, tried to get the extrusion assembly off, which is supposed to be really easy. It does not come off, which is making me very suspicious. Long story short, the filament can get all the way to here. So there's some red filament in this tube. It is sitting at the top of this. I just heated up the extruder to printing temperature, and I'm trying to force it to extrude. It's heated up, and I can press a button right here. Yeah, I think my extrusion motor assembly is totally seized. Whoa, some black stuff just came out. Let's keep trying. I think it's just really jammed up in there for some reason. Alright, I'm just going to keep pressing this until that turns red. That's all the black stuff from before. I wonder what went wrong. It's like maybe the nozzle wasn't hot enough when we were trying to print. Yeah, tons of the black filament coming out. It's starting to turn red. We may have a shot here, folks. Can filament go bad? Maybe my black filament is no good anymore? Something is very wrong with this thing. Everything was going good. It jammed itself into the side of the machine. Now the error said abnormal resistance in the x-axis movement. I printed like 5 things on this thing and now it's broken. $500 down the drain. I'll keep troubleshooting it, but Creality will be hearing from me. I have some good news though. This feels really strong now after sitting here for a couple days. Did a little test fit. There's these kind of grooves in the heatsink. Goes on like that. So my beautiful epoxy job is not actually in the way. It'll sit nicely on the chip. Gonna get everything cleaned up here and ready. Got this military grade IPA my buddy gave me years ago. It's in there and it has been holding for at least 15 minutes. We'll see if this baby will post. In hindsight, the right thing to do would have been to message the eBay seller when I saw that heatsink was banging around and I saw those caps. But now I've messed with it so much that it's my burden to bear. So I'm going to give it power. I can't tell if the switch on the front is on. It's not, hopefully. Pressing the power button. She's quiet. And she's kind of posting. Is that what that's supposed to look like? I don't think so. Blue BIOS screen? I mean, yeah, obviously something is wrong. Perhaps capacitor related. It is clearly messing with the VGA output. Never mind, it works. You won't believe this. The VGA cable on the back of the monitor was loose. I plugged it in, and here we are. We need to get this thing a hard drive. It only has 384 megs of RAM, which is not a lot. We might have to solve that problem too. I was going to throw Windows XP on this thing. That's what it's supposed to look like. Let's start with the RAM situation. I've been trying to get more organized down here, and I got a couple of these for RAM and CPUs. They're not very organized once you open it up, but at least it's a spot to put the stuff safely. This is back when the 3D printer worked a few weeks ago, the good old days. I was able to make a few of those. One problem I have when I work on normal PCs is I almost exclusively deal with servers. So almost all the RAM I have in any variety is ECC, error code correcting RAM, which these consumer grade devices don't usually handle. However, I did find this Kingston 1 gig stick. It's not ECC. It's faster, I think, than what this machine is going to want, but hopefully it will accept it. Let's find out. I don't think it likes it. Well, I hit everything with contact cleaner, reseated it in bank 1, didn't work. Put it in bank 2, as you can see. We have a gig of RAM theoretically, so the RAM is sorted. Keeping with the theme of trying to stay organized, I've got all my IDE drives in this bad boy, and some old SCSI stuff. Now, of course, the superior option would be to use something like this IDE to SD card adapter, if only there was some sort of device that I could, like, custom make a tray and create that tray to mount this. Wouldn't it be great if a device like that existed? Here's a Maxter drive with an HP sticker on it from May 7th, 2003. No idea if it works, but it feels like it might be meant to be, folks. It's already got the screws on it with the shoulders for this exact type of machine. We're going to pop it in and see if it works. Let's see what happens. I hear the drive spinning up. It sees the drive. What if there's just an OS on there? The Lilo bootloader. There's Linux on this drive. I'm just going to let it boot, see what happens. It says the hard drive has gone 48,250 days without being checked. We better check it. I'm trying to remember where I got this hard drive. I think my friend Andy donated it to the channel with a pile of other old drives. Wonder if he remembers his username and password. Linux kernel version 2613. It says firewall login. Root. No password. Dang. Well, this video is already a joke anyway, so let's just continue the adventure. See if we can reset that password. I think we can do it from the bootloader. Never actually done this before, but I hit Control X to make it halt its default boot, and I think we can do Linux into single user mode. Maybe. Well, I'm at a login prompt again. I was sort of expecting to already be logged in as a root. I don't think this is going to work. So this system is configured to not let me do it this way, I think. Let's try another. Saw this on a random forum post. Let's see if that works. It did. I'm in. I think I reset the password. More random forum stuff I found, but it more or less made sense. When you're in this mode, the file system is read-only, so I remounted it with write. And then I issued password. I changed my password. I synced the file system. Don't know if this is necessary. I made it read-only again. And now we're going to do a reboot. Oops. Halt? I can't remember. Control delete. See you later. Now I'm just going to naturally let it boot, and I hopefully can log in as root. I'm probably just going to wipe this drive and put Windows on it anyway, but I'm kind of curious. It's pretty snappy on this old hardware. I like it. The moment of truth. We're in. Last login was in 2006, apparently. And it says, in marriage, as in war, it is permitted to take every advantage of the enemy. Probably not the healthiest marriage advice. So yeah, this was some sort of firewall. Yeah, this almost certainly came from Andy, now that I'm looking at it. What's on the desktop? It does have a desktop folder. So let's try Start X. Oh yeah. When's the last time you saw that? KDE 3.4. Wow. We got a web browser on this thing? Conqueror. You know what? We don't need Windows anymore. We'll just do our load testing on the Conqueror browser from like 2005. I kind of like the setup. Button him back up and get back to business. Well, thought I was going to have another Windows XP rig. Ended up with a sweet early to mid 2000s Linux machine, pre-installed. Sticker came off. Cosmetically, the machine is in really good shape. Appears to function. It's been running for, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes total now. So let's put this aside. We'll be back. Oh, and I have a couple pieces of good news. The replacement caps for this guy have arrived. So when he inevitably dies, we'll be in good position to do something about it, I think. And look who's back in action. It really was a comedy of errors. Some still a mystery. Many of them self-induced. Long story short, the black spool was definitely wound up. This ended up with a bunch of the black filaments stuck and clogged inside the print head. Usually this thing can clean that all out. It extrudes a bunch by itself and literally throws it off the back of the machine. So there's a bunch of these stupid little things all over the floor. Kind of a bad design. Before I ended up extruding everything, I thought the extrusion module was jammed. So I tried to get this thing out, never could. That thing lives behind this cover. It's got two magnets on the bottom and you kind of lift to pull it out of some pegs at the top. When I put that back on, I put it on ever so slightly wrong. So one of the pegs on the top had it tweaked just a little bit towards this corner, and it looked like it was on. The thing would move around freely, but that was just enough to confuse the positioning sensors in very erratic and unpredictable ways. So I reseated this cover, got everything extruded, and we can print again. So we got backup caps, we got this backup thing. These are all the rafts and supports, which should just theoretically come off. Let me work on this. Yeah, seems serviceable. I think it would work if the real one in the machine breaks someday. I'll keep that around. The game plan is we need to go get this over near the retro rack. And I was debating what to do. I was looking through my pile of rack ears, and I have some compatible ears. Can't remember if it came with them, or this might just be a pretty common Cisco pattern for some of their devices. It's such a silly thing to rack up because I'm just never going to use it, you know what I mean? It's a collector's item for me, really. I think I'm going to rack it up. At least it won't be on a shelf and it'll look good in the rack. I'm going to get these on, find some screws. They're on. I had to steal a bunch of screws from some other Cisco equipment. This thing had 3 screws to its name, which wasn't enough. Let's go get this racked up. Here's where it lives now. Might be the easiest thing I've ever racked because I could just put it on top of this thing. Got a pretty nice Cisco thing going on at the top of the rack. Let me walk you through the plan. This is the router. I should be able to inform the router, ask the cache engine if it has whatever's being requested first. For example, you're loading a web page. So those two need to get linked up. We'll of course get this one on the network here, and then this yellow cable right here is a T1 line. So we'll be able to get a network on the other side of this cable. That will act as our internet. So we'll get some servers hosting a website and a few large files or something. We'll get that Compaq we spent way too long fixing up on the RetroRack network. And when it goes out over the T1 link, this thing will consult the cache engine. And these hard drives up here should be caching some stuff for us. This is all theoretical, but that's the game plan. The first thing to do, we'll wire this all up, we'll power on the network, get this thing on the network properly, and then start talking about that protocol that allows these to talk with one another. Look at this outrageous thing I constructed. Well, more like summoned, if you know what I mean. That's going to be a little distasteful for some of you, but I think it's a good use of AI to build weird bespoke things for yourself in your basement. There's 2 flavors of device in there that are important for controlling everything in that rack. There's a PDU, power distribution unit, on the back. It's switched. I can actually, over my home network, talk to those outlets and switch them on as I wish over SNMP. This tool can do that as well. And then there's terminal servers. There's a MRV terminal server hiding in the back. I use that occasionally. The main one is the Cisco terminal server. When that's online and on the network, I can have remote serial console access to the machine. So like that blue cable I was plugging in to the front of the cache engine, I'll be able to remotely from in here talk to that same cable, so to speak. So this thing understands all the devices that are plugged in to the outlets, and I can make groups. So I've got this group I call net, which is the basic network. So the terminal server, the router, and the switch. I only have one switch in there right now. So let's fire that up. You can just say on, and then you can see here it knows they're starting. It's going to start pinging them. It knows their IPs, and it'll tell me when they're online. And up at the top, this is kind of cool. It's not a very advanced PDU. It doesn't expose too much information, but I can see the overall current usage of the bank. So there's 2 banks of 8 outlets in there, I think. And I can see my overall current draw. Oh, let me show you the coolest thing about this thing. I, of course, have corresponding CLI tools to interact with all that. One of which, just because I can, is an IBMI version. Well, it's acting like and looking like IBMI. It's just a Go app, but I can go in there. It really feels like you're using IBMI. It is like so cool. I can switch outlets on and off. Of course, it knows those 3 are on that we just turned on. I can get in here and configure things to edit. This is the PDU information. Yeah, I love this thing. It's got this notion of a machine inventory, and there were a couple outlets, outlet 5 and 4, on the back of this PDU that were empty. And so I plugged in the cache engine to outlet 5. So I'm going to come in here and add a new machine to my inventory. We'll just call it CE505, I guess. I don't know its IP yet. I do know that it belongs to outlet 5. It is on term serve on port 2004. And that is good. That is good. If we refresh here, now we know about CE505, and I should be able to turn it on. So now it's booting up. Oh, check this out. There's a console. Open in browser. This is the term serve. I'm never going to use it this way. We should be able to watch the CE505 boot like this. Yeah, there it goes. My little virtual console here. Oh, never mind. I was going to say maybe it doesn't understand this thing. So this is the CE505 booting. I don't know. This was fun to come up with ideas to what would I want in the perfect retro rack app or whatever. So here we are. It's not really, it's a work in progress. It's not on GitHub. Maybe I'll put it there if there's enough demand, or I need to clean it up and make it more generic. It's obviously very bespoke to my exact use case, as you can imagine. I kind of built it to my tailored specifications that I needed. Anyway, let's wait for this thing to boot. I think the very first thing we're going to want to do is give the cache engine an IP. So this is how I can remote into that term serve over Telnet. So we're in. We need to give it a host name as well, I suppose. I wonder how similar this is to iOS. I guess we'll just try a conf t. Yeah, that's good. Let's give it a host name of CE505. That is good. And we do have interface control, probably Ethernet 0. It is. I think 10.0010 is available on the retro rack, so let's give that a chance. You got to reboot it for a new IP address. Do we need to worry about no shut? Nope. So strange. Okay. Wonder if it knows about write. Maybe. Okay, we've written the configuration. I wonder if reboot is a thing or reload. There's reload. I guess it's calling it a cold restart. So let's see what happens. This is going to reboot it. In the meantime, I don't think I've ever configured a machine from here. So let's go to the directory and take a look at CE505 and edit it. Let's give it that IP address so my little retro rack app knows about it. Enter to confirm. Oh no. So this thing has usernames and passwords and API tokens, and the token I'm using here is not an admin. So let's do something about that. I'll show you how that works. Give you a little tour of my weird app you're never going to be able to use. So over here in settings, I can make some access tokens. Let's call this worker3 CLI admin. And he's going to be, oh yeah, so I have viewer operator admin. I accidentally made an operator token. So admin create. I don't care if you see this because I've got bigger problems if you're on my network, especially the RetroRack network. It's not on the internet. It's just an environment variable, RetroRack token. Let's see if we have more luck now. Directory, go down to that guy, edit him, give him an IP, and enter. We are allowed to do it that time. Let's see if it's online. Hasn't pinged it yet. That's okay. Let's see if we can look at our IP. That appears to have persisted. I'm realizing that everything I just did made 0 sense. If you're not familiar with Cisco's iOS command line, I will try to be a little more informative as we figure out the protocol stuff with the router. I always struggle, you know, how much should I explain every time? Because I've made a lot of Cisco videos. I tend to err on the side of over-explaining as I'm doing something. Let me know if you like that. I sort of enjoy presenting like that. So this thing has an IP. Let's try to ping it from within the RetroRack network. It's responding to pings. Okay, I need to go do a lot of reading. And of course, in my weird app, it's getting pinged all the time by this thing. I can force check it. It's up. Let's go look at the iOS version on HQ Router real quick. And I'm realizing if I ever use this in a video, this is going to need to be bigger. To show version, and we are running iOS for a 7200 series router version 12.1.14E3 from 2003. That is good. I like to keep them on the oldest version I can use for my use case. I know that's not what you're supposed to do, but you got to remember, this is all just play down here. The internet is not talking to these things. My point is, though, O3's not too far off from the cache engine. Let's go check its version. CE Ver 2.51 from 2001. Hopefully there's enough overlap in the protocol versions we're going to go for. There's two primary versions of the protocol that we're going to try to configure between these things. I'm going to shoot for version 1 because I don't care about HTTPS or any of that. I keep putting off the research I need to go do. I'm going to go do that now that I know my iOS versions I'm running, or CE version, whatever this weird thing is. Compiled by Bilbo Bagalot. I am reading through the WCCP chapter of the Cisco IP Addressing Configuration Guide, and in Cisco's own words, the Web Cache Communication Protocol is a Cisco-developed content routing technology that intercepts IP packets and redirects those packets to a destination other than the specified in the IP packet. And good news, it says, as of Cisco iOS release 12.1, my 7200 router is running 12.1. I can use version 1 or version 2. So I have to imagine the cache engine has at least version 1 support on it. I have found, though, that even if Cisco says, yeah, 12.1 and later is fine, there can be nuance in the minor versions that can screw you, but hopefully we're going to be okay. I'm going to read this. Getting a little deeper into the docs here, and version 1 only supports HTTP, which is fine in my case. I'm not going to use HTTPS. And the biggest limitation, I think, which also doesn't matter to me, is that one router has to be involved. You can have a cluster of the content engines, and in V2, it doesn't say SSL, but I imagine it can support HTTPS, and you can do a lot more clustering, basically. So here's a V1 setup. You're only going to have one router, but you can have multiple backing content engines, basically. And then in V2, you can have many layer 3 devices, and they call it a service group, apparently. Obviously, I don't need to do that down here. Okay, we're going to start with the basics. We can enable WCCP globally on the router. Let's do that first and see if we run into any trouble with these very simple commands. Let's start by going into the router. So we're here, and it should be IP WCCP. I'm referencing some notes I made over here. Version 1. Oh, no. Conf T. IP WCCP version 1. They liked that. Then we got IP WCCP web cache. It also liked that. Let's see what that looks like in the config. Pretty straightforward. So that has enabled this protocol on the router. Here's something spicy I just found in the docs. The cache engine is hosting a GUI on port 8001. Yeah, I haven't configured this thing at all, so it's not enabled or anything. This is cool. We're going to get all sorts of stuff. What? Disk stats. Oh, yeah. This is going to be really useful to see if it's actually doing anything. Enable. I'm going to see if I can learn all the commands I need to enable this, but it looks like it would be pretty easy. Version 1, and I tell it about its router. Let me explain what I've learned so far with one of my world-famous diagrams. This is an overview of WCCP, the cache engine, from a configuration perspective as I understand it at this moment. Obviously, I've got the router at 10.0.0.1. I've got the cache engine at 10.0.0.10. The router is going to have a T1 connection to our internet. That's what this is. Spoilers, I was just looking around and my router is not detecting that card, so we'll be troubleshooting that shortly. Step 1, you enable WCCP and specify the version on each device. So we've already done that on the router. We have not done that on the cache engine yet. Then we're going to tell the cache engine which router it should be talking to. And what it's going to do is reach out to the router and say, hey, I'm your cache engine, and the router is going to talk back and say, yep, okay, bud, I like that. From that point on, the router is aware that this is a cache engine, but we need to tell the router which outbound interface should it be applying caching to. That's going to be our T1 guy here. So this is our outbound interface. It's not going to cache on everything. You can basically say, only cache for things going out to the internet. I guess our next step is let's enable everything on the cache engine, tell it about the router, and at that point they should start talking to each other. And we should see that in the logs. Also, this cool T1 thing is just because my IBM flowcharting template has that. This thing is over 50 years old. So the next step is I think we need to get into the cache engine, which we do like this. And we're in enable mode, privilege mode, and we're going to say configure from terminal. I'm trying to be explicit here. And this means I'm going to configure you from this terminal. It's kind of a oddity of Cisco iOS history. Maybe we'll do a whole video on that. There's other ways to configure the device. Network, memory, all sorts of stuff. And you can see now I've got this config thing in my prompt. So I'm configuring from this terminal. And I just dug this up in some docs, and I need to tell it for WCCP, your router list 1 is this router. And that seems to have worked. I'm kind of flying blind here. And I believe what we've done is create something called router list tag 1. And now I'm saying you're a web cache for router list number 1. That seems to have worked. And finally, we're going to tell it the version. That also seems to have worked. It's kind of a hierarchy. So you're in enable mode, and then you get into configuration, global configuration mode. So I can exit out of that, and I can do a show run, or typed fully, show running config, and it's going to show me everything it knows about. And we do see that my WCCP stuff exists. So we're going to write that out to the configuration. Everything you do on a Cisco device is immediately effective on the device. So when you're working, it seems like it would be very stressful. So when you're working in production, you change something, the device is currently doing that. And then you have to persist that config that you've just changed in the running config. It's sort of in memory. You could think of it that way. And after you write it out, that means when you reboot the router, it's going to save all that configuration you've just done by hand live at the terminal. Back on the router here, and I was trying to figure out if that worked, and I don't think it did. So I'm doing show IP WCCP, and it says it doesn't have any cache engines. I think I configured that for WCCP version 2. As you'll recall, version 2 can have multiple routers. Version 1 cannot. So let's try that again. I was poking around at the WCCP command, and in iOS you can type question mark at any time to see what your options are. And I think I want to configure a home router, because of course that can only be one. So it's the home router. Let's try that. Set the home router to that guy. Seems to have liked that. Guess we'll go back to the router. Things are looking better. We have number of cache engines 1. They're talking to each other on protocol version 1.0. Okay. And then there was also this web cache detail command I can run, and we're in a usable state. Okay. I'll take that. One last check before we dive into this T1 nightmare. There's a show WCCP routers. I'm back on the cache engine now. Whoops. Router. Yes, it knows its home router is my router. So I think what's happening now is the router and the cache engine know about each other. They're talking back and forth, which is impressive in its own right, in my opinion. And I could probably end the video now, but we're gonna keep going. Now we need to configure that outside interface on my big router. And in here, unfortunately, this is the router. I call it HQ router, headquarter router. Show IP interface brief. It doesn't know about any T1 interface. And so I can also do show controllers. iOS usually calls the T1 stuff controllers. The gigabit Ethernet interfaces are going to show up as well. I should say there are 3 gigabit Ethernet interfaces on the back of that router for context. So if we run through this, that was the first one. Here's the second one. Maybe someday I'll know what any of this means. And that's it. It doesn't know about that T1 card on the front. To drive the point home here, we'll say show controllers question mark. And T1 is one of our options. What sort of T1 controllers do we have? And I say T1, and I have nothing. even though there is one physically plugged in that used to work. So we've got a problem here. I'm going to have to shut down this router. I'll probably try just like pulling the card out, in and out. It's called a port adapter. We need to now talk about the 7200 series router. Here's a couple of 7200 series Cisco routers. These came out in the 90s. This one is older. You can tell because it's got the older Cisco Systems logo. This is one of the originals, and later they came out with the VXR series. You can tell, of course, because it says VXR, and it's got a slightly newer Cisco Systems logo on it. The one in the rack is a 7206 VXR, and the numbering scheme is pretty easy. If it has 6 of these ports, it's a 7206. They made some smaller ones. Getting kind of tired of dragging these things around. They are outrageously heavy. This is a 7204, and it's got 4 slots. Pretty easy to tell what's going on here. The 7206 has 2 more slots right here for a total of 6 slots. I've been calling them slots and cards. They're called port adapters. This one here is also a VXR and also has the older Cisco logo. So the logo has nothing to do with it, apparently. At any rate, these are called port adapters. They come out and they provide all sorts of different functionality. So for example, this is I think that's a T3 card. This is what is this? This is a card that has 2 fast Ethernet optical ports, fiber ports. The basic makeup of these things is they have an input-output controller that takes up the length of the chassis here. This is where the serial console goes. That blue cable I was showing you earlier, you got to use a DB25 to get into these older ones. The slightly newer one will take that blue console cable right there. And they store the config on these little flash cart deals here. This is more typical. You get the Cisco Systems branded flash. It's an Intel flash chip in there. And the basic idea is you've got your input output here. You've got your up to 6 port adapters, and you can get some double wides. So I've got this ether switch thing here that lets me use this whole thing as a switch. This is pretty rare. You don't see that every day. And on the back, you get 2 power supplies and the NPE, the Network Processing Engine. This one happens to be an NPE 200. There are various flavors. The one in the rack has a G1, and it integrated this thing, which is the brains of the operation, does all the routing, with the input, the I/O console input, into one piece. And so you notice the one in the rack looks kind of weird. It's got that weird thing coming off the front. That is the port adapter jacket card. It turns a 7206 into what one could call a 7207. Gives you a 7th port adapter slot. So I'm not sure why that T1 card is giving me trouble. The first thing we're going to do is shut the thing down. We'll reseat it a couple times, see if the device can detect it. And if it doesn't, in one of these bins over here, I'm not sure which one, I've got a lot more port adapters. Probably like 10 of those T1 adapters. I spent a bunch of time troubleshooting this thing, cleaning the contacts, reinserting didn't help. I'm pretty sure this port adapter has gone bad. So I pulled out a few T1 cards from the stockpile, got it hooked up like this. Note that the original T1 card has the yellow cord in it. It is in port adapter slot 4. Powered the router back on and it wouldn't even boot. It's complaining about the port adapter in slot 4. It's saying reinsert it. That's obviously not going to help. I think the board is bad. So I pulled that out and the router was happy to boot in this situation with a few other T1 cards in there. We're going to use this one here. Now, of course, with the router powered back on, if we do a show controllers T1, we can see our T1 interfaces. All of these are the 8 ports on that first card in port adapter slot 1 we're going to use. Guess we had a bad port adapter. You might be wondering why I own so many of these. I wanted to do T1 bonding. So I thought, wow, these port adapters have 8 ports. I could bond 8 T1 lines together, and you end up having the bandwidth of 8, essentially. Big surprise, these port adapters do not support bonding. So now I have a lot of these. Guess it's good because they're going bad, apparently. Let me catch you up on what I've been doing. This is the other end of that yellow T1 cable that's plugged into the HQ router. This is a Cisco 1721 with a T1 CSU DSU card, and it's also got a fast Ethernet port. This is going to be our ISP. So we'll get a server over here hosting some simple web page, and the other machine, this Compaq probably, when it flows through the RetroAct network, it's going to get bottlenecked by this T1 because that's going to mimic our internet. And then we'll be able to see how much the cache engine really improves things when you are truly stuck with a 1.544 megabit per second connection. Fun fact, I had this already configured. I did a whole video setting up T1 down here, and this thing lost its configuration, so spent 20 minutes getting that back into shape, and I guess I just won't turn it off. There's been a lot more setup and configuration in this video than I expected that has nothing to do with the cache engine. So here is the situation I just recreated. This diagram's a little out of date. I need to update it, but the router over there has a T1 link to the router sitting on the bench I was just showing you. That router on the bench is going to host this 10020 network, and this lady's going to host some servers on it to pretend to be the internet. The Compaq and whatever other machines we hook up all flow through the router, and it's going to have a route over to here. It's going to be constrained by the T1 link. And yeah, they are talking now over T1. I can show you that. So here's it's called branch router, but it's our internet. Here's the router on the bench next to me. I'm going to ping over to the HQ router over this T1 serial connection. They use this 172.16.30 network, which has, I think, 2 IPs on it. So I'm going to ping the router. It responds. Well, I guess they're both routers, but you know what I mean. And then from HQ router, I can ping the Cisco on the bench. And that's happening over T1. If you want to know more about T1, I've done all this before as a full video, and I'll link to that in the description below. I've been relatively era appropriate up until this point, and I'm losing steam. So this little guy, Old Faithful here, is going to be our web server. So it'll be on that network. It's going to serve as our internet. I'm going to host a website, host some files. We can run some tests, I think. I could use a crossover cable, but I'd rather have a switch in here for this network. And I'm not totally out of steam. Let's unbox this Linksys Etherfast 24-port Ethernet switch. A viewer sent this in a long time ago, and I was digging through my email and I can't find their name. I try to be so good about attribution. So I'm sorry if you sent this in, thank you, and I really apologize. I cannot find the email, or maybe it was a Patreon message. I would have died to have one of these when I was a kid. Let's see here, 2002-ish, so I wouldn't say it's ISP grade, but it's era appropriate for what we're up to. Brand new, look at that, folks. It's still, it like smells like a brand new electronic component. Wow. That is nice. It's got rack ears. Don't tempt me with a good time. I think we're gonna open this up before we power it on. At first, it sort of smelled just like the plastic it was in, but it's smelling a little electrolytic-y, if you know what I mean. If you smell up close to that vent, it's pretty strong. I just had a look around, and I don't see anything wrong. None of the caps are bulging. There's nothing coming out of them. It smells like an exploded cap, though. If it does explode, at least we'll get to see it. She's fine. I'm going to leave that running for a second, then I'll put the lid back on. Maybe some sort of glue they used? So here's what I've got cooking. This is being hosted on the Think Center over there. This is a website that Mark from the Serial Port made me years ago for one of their VCF East, I think it was, booths they had set up with some gear they had hosting websites. It was pretty good. We got some good stuff on here. We got Nikki enjoying the Sunfire, RIP. The homepage is only like 160 kilobytes. So I'm going to add like a big ass image to this at least. Even the T1 connection's not going to have too much trouble with 160 kilobytes. Okay, now we have this big ass 2 megabyte picture of Chloe. I'm going to make it a little smaller on the page. Let's add a couple more. All right, added a picture of baby Jasper and the VXR. So the gang's all here. This is about 6.5 megabytes now of transfer to load this page. So I think that's something we can work with, see if the cache engine can help. I was editing that HTML by hand, for the record. We're also going to generate a 100 megabyte file. And to do that, I'm going to need sudo. There we go. We've got a 100 megabyte file we can try to download. That should take upwards of 10 minutes on the T1 connection. And so we'll know for sure if the cache engine is doing its job. In fact, we can test that for sure. I've got the ISP all set up over there. I'll explain that in a second. And so our server we're going to be hitting with the web host is 10.0.20.2. And so if we try to download that bin from this VM, which is on the RetroRack network, yeah, it says, I'm in the way. It says it's going to take, yeah, something like 10 minutes. because this is traveling over the T1 link. This is the fully complete ISP setup. I'm still downloading that file, so the switch is pretty busy. I don't know if that means we're full duplex or we're having a lot of collisions, but the file seems to be downloading at the speed I expect. I know it's kind of weird because it's in here with me, and then I'm going to hook up this computer also in here with me, but at the end of the day, our test client here is going to flow through the T1 connection. That's going to be the bottleneck. The cache engine is powered up. I need to go configure some more stuff to make it actually do something, I think. I think we're almost at the end of the configuration saga. So on the cache engine, I'm checking if WCCP is enabled, and it says yes, I'm version 1, I'm currently active. Back on the HQ router, I'm going to do show IP WCCP, and the important part is that it is aware of a cache engine. Hopefully that's the one in the rack. Now the final piece of the puzzle, I think, is telling it which interface to cache for, so which traffic to cache. And as you'll recall, maybe, if this has been making any sense, the serial interface is our T1 link over to this ISP of sorts. That's the interface we're going to want to cache on. Traffic going out into that interface, its content should be cached on the way back. Let's see if I kind of understand this. So we're going to configure that interface. And there's this IP WCCP web cache redirect command, and you can tell it to be in or out. And I don't know which one I want. I think I want out. So when a workstation on the RetroAct network is requesting, that test binary file that's 100 megabytes, it's going to be leaving over the T1 connection, and out is going to say, first consult the cache engine. I think. It's doing something, but definitely not what I want. So here I'm going to hit the website, and I get nothing. If I go back over to HQ router, and I turn that redirect stuff off, right? So now the cache engine, no redirections happening. I try again. I get my website back. So I'm missing something. I think I fixed it. As you can see, I can get the response. I just turned redirect on. I needed to give the cache engine a default gateway. The moment I did this, everything started working. So now let's do something interesting. Let's pull that image of Chloe directly. And it takes a few moments. 5 seconds. What happens if we pull it again? 0.3 seconds. Yes, the only way that could have happened, to my knowledge, is it exists in the cache engine now. I'm going to save out all my configs here before I forget. On the cache engine, you can do this show statistics HTTP savings, and it'll tell you how many cache hits you're getting. And that was me messing around with curl and wget just now. Let's see if we can make that go up. I'm just going to wget Chloe a few more times here. Yeah, definitely going up. The cache engine works. I know this isn't very exciting here. Let's boot up the Compaq, I guess, and run one last test. Compaq is starting up. There's a serious aroma in here between the JB weld I put in there and all the dust it's burning off and whatever's going on with this thing. The networking continues. I can't get this thing to ping. So let me show you. I cannot ping out. The router sees it and is responding to the ARP request. So for example, we'll run a TCP dump on ARP right here. Start the ping. This guy's saying, who has the router? The router is responding and saying, here's my MAC address. So then I was thinking, well, this used to be a firewall. Maybe there's a bunch of IP tables rules blocking incoming traffic. And that does not appear to be it. I didn't see anything suspicious. However, there is a bridge called My Bridge set up, which might be causing us problems. I'm going to remove that. Okay, I deleted the bridge, which was messing up ETH0, and I'm getting responses from my router now. Let's load up old Conqueror. This is not going to be a very scientific test. I will warn you. Let's try to load up that web page. It's still, you can't tell, but oh, it doesn't like it. Okay, this was already cached. I didn't think about that. I think I had already requested Jasper as well, but it's clunking around on this one. Oh, it does not like it. Yeah, it's trying to get these images, 2 megabyte images, over the T1 link. Now I imagine this browser just cached all that locally. I don't know what just happened. Browser's crashing. Does it really? What is going on here? I don't know how to use this. Anyway, I was noticing this thing's pretty kitted out. It's got Firefox as well. You can do it, buddy. I think we're I/O bound on the hard drive. He's getting tired. I gotta kill Conqueror. It's still trying. You can do it, buddy. This should load near instantly, aside from the problem with this computer being slow. Yeah, it's done. It loaded right away. Can we see the other images? Yep. That's my scientific test for you folks. The cache engine has done its job. It also cached that 100 megabyte file earlier, right? So this should be pretty quick. It's not as quick as I thought it would be. I don't care. Unless Conqueror and Firefox are sharing a cache. I sort of doubt that. One more test. Good old Mozilla. Instant. Yep. I like it. Out of curiosity, let's look at the reporting in the GUI. Savings. Yes. We're getting some serious savings. We better graph this. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at a bunch of cache misses at first. Now we're getting a bunch of hits. Of course, you can configure all sorts of stuff. You can tell it not to cache certain things. By default, it is not doing CGI bin and stuff like that. I saw that in the config. The volume is half full on one disk and 34% full on another. I'm sure there's stuff on there already that it needs to be running for it to cycle out, I'm guessing. Okay, we did it. This was quite the adventure. You know, when your bench looks like this, you've been having some fun in your home lab. This video kind of got away from me. A lot of side quests. I like watching videos like that where some guy's working on something and something breaks, and so then you got to like build something else and then that breaks and so on and so forth. That's kind of how it goes. So hopefully you enjoyed me bringing you along. I cut out a lot of networking troubleshooting, especially in the second half of the video. So consider yourself lucky. I've been thinking about this cache engine for a long time since I bought it. And I was like, what am I going to do with this brick? And then mxshift fixed it. So this would not be possible without mxshift. Definitely go check out those videos in the description. Hopefully we'll get part 3. Come on, mxshift. Just kidding. I'm glad it worked. It wasn't too bad to configure. Documentation, not too dense. It was a shockingly small amount of commands for it to just start doing its thing, which I suppose is thanks to WCCP and both devices knowing how to speak that. So that part was a pleasant surprise. I can't say this Compaq was very pleasant, but I had fun working on it. I think I'm going to stop yapping. Thanks once again. I'm on the road to 100,000 subscribers. I'm just about to 80,000. I think I just passed 77K at the filming of this video. So I'm going to need to make a lot more videos, and I'm going to need a lot more of you to subscribe. I know a large portion of you don't. If you really want to support the channel, I'm also on Patreon. I post early release videos without ads, behind the scenes type things, organizing the workshop, that sort of deal. And you also get access to the Ceroport Discord, where myself and a bunch of other fine folks hang out all the time. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.